What's going on, guys? Fun with Knives back again, and the results are in. A few weeks ago, I asked you guys to identify your favorite knife manufacturer and why you choose to buy from them. And I got the results all tallied up, ready to tell you. Now, it was very interesting what you guys chose and why you chose it. My original plan here was to identify each manufacturer that had a vote and organize them from least amount of votes to most amount of votes. But unfortunately, we had over 30 companies or manufacturers mentioned that got a vote, and that would take much too long of a video. And to be honest with you, this is like my 37th take doing this video. I don't know why I can't enunciate or get my words out. So we're just going to roll with this one and do the top 5. Now, I do want to make kind of an honorable mention here for all those voters, the ones that voted for a kind of obscure company, the ones that weren't mainstream or run-of-the-mill. They were your favorite because you've had extensive experience with them. There's some of those brands I haven't even heard of. And it was kind of cool to see you guys defend, or not justify, but explain why you guys chose the companies that you did. Why you trust their products, why you think they're the best. Because everyone has their own opinions and biases, including me. You guys have heard mine throughout the duration of this channel's existence, and it was kind of cool to see yours. Now, I'm gonna hop right into this. I don't want to make a long video, but I do want to identify something. The results were interesting. I wouldn't say they're necessarily shocking, but they were interesting, and it kind of showed me what my viewers like and what I might be leaning towards purchasing here in the near future. Now, number 5, to nobody's surprise, was Cold Steel. We all know there's a lot of Cold Steel fanboys out there, and I think for good reason. Now, I chose to exemplify Cold Steel as a number 5th choice with my Spartan, something that's ridiculously large for a folding knife and something I don't get a whole lot of use out of other than pure enjoyment. Guys, Cold Steel to me is the epitome of budget toughness. You don't have to spend $100 to get a nice, tough Cold Steel. In fact, almost everything they make is tough because it's got this lock here. A triad lock is a tried and true design. And a lot of times people say, oh, I've been carrying a fixed blade for the duration of my knife career. I want to transition to a folder, but I don't want to spend, $150, $200 because I know I'm just going to break it whenever I buy. And I immediately send them to Cold Steel. Their designs are not my favorite. And their materials aren't necessarily my favorite, even though I'm glad they transitioned to a whole lot of carpenter steel like BD1 and XHP. But what Cold Steel does, they do it right. That's all I can say about that. I mean, we could make fun of their ridiculous videos all day long. We could, talk about the eccentric character that is Lynn Thompson. But again, what they do right. That's why their models like the Recon series, the Code 4 series, the AK-47 series, the Spartan, they're all so popular for a reason, and they will continue to sell. Moving on to number 4. Number 4 is a company that I touched on a lot in the poll video itself. That's ZT. I think you guys by now know exactly how I feel about ZT and how much I love their products. Since I've said so much good, let's do just a little bit of bad here. I'll reiterate, because I love their materials, their fit and finish, the designs they use. I mean, they just kind of fit what I like in knives. Now, some of the bad things that I think you could say about them is they're potentially overpriced in a market that is oversaturated with titanium flipper frame. Oh my gosh. Titanium flipper frame locks. Wow, that was a tongue twister. They're not coming in at the same price point as some of their overseas counterparts. So you could argue that they're a little bit overpriced, that a lot of their models are very similar to other things in their lineup, aka titanium frame locks. That's kind of all they make, and that they're a little bit too beefy a lot of the time when they don't necessarily need to be. But that's kind of how they got their start. But let's move on from ZT to something I don't have to show you, and that's a Benchmade knife coming in at number 3. Guys, I've never owned a Benchmade, and I know how weird that sounds. I've been years into a knife collecting and using and reviewing hobby, and I've never even owned a Benchmade. And that's strange for a lot of people because Benchmade fans always tell me that they're good workhorses, and I like to use my knives, and that they've proven themselves so well, that they got great locks and great materials and great designs, lasting designs even. And I agree. But to me, every time I want to go buy a Benchmade, I'll save, $100, $200 to buy a Benchmade. I will, with one in particular in mind. At one point it was a Griptilian, at one time it was a Contigo, at another time it was the, what is the Osborne one, the 943 or 941 or something. And each time I was ready to buy a Benchmade, I ended up with something else. I don't know why, if I subconsciously think that Benchmade is just slightly overpriced for what they offer, which may or may not be true. I don't know. I've never had one. But I've always gone with something else. I've always, oh no, I'll get a Spyderco this time. Or I'll get a ZT or a Kershaw this time, or whatever it is. I never land on Benchmade. So all I can say is I think they're a solid choice. I can't really have an opinion after that because I don't have any experience. But they come in at number 3. Now, number 2 is the company I have the most experience with, and that is Kershaw. Kershaw, to me, is the epitome of the budget knife. Not so much the cheap, crappy knife, and not the expensive, you know, head turner, everyday carry knife. This is the everyman's knife, especially this one in particular, the Knockout. I think Kershaw makes a ton of home runs every year. Now, no, I'm biased. I like their designs. I like the price point and the materials used for the most part, especially when it comes to their USA-made models. Now, I think Kershaw has their downfalls like any other company, but to me, if someone told me that they want to spend between $20 and $50 on a knife, I don't think they could get more options or better options than a Kershaw in most instances. Now, that's to say, Kershaw's not good at everything. They're not. Their lineup is not particularly impressive beyond the $60 mark, excluding the Launch Series, which has been good for me, but that's a small part of their lineup. And you could argue that they're, again, a little bit overpriced on some of their models, especially rocking 8CR13 MOV steel, and they're pushing $40. Again, Kershaw's not the most diverse company either, as in they don't produce a whole lot of hunting stuff. That's kind of worth a damn. To me, I think they excel at everyday carry knives only, with the exception of that Camp 18 I'm looking at on my wall. That being said, we're already 7 minutes in. Let's go to number 1. Number 1, guys, won by over... Okay, let's put this in perspective. Number 1 had over twice as many votes as number 2, Kershaw. You guys love this company, and this company is Spyderco. Overwhelming winner is Spyderco, and I think for good reason. I think that you guys can't go wrong with the Spyderco. I never have. Everything I've owned is phenomenal. It really is. They're just really good cutting tools. They're really good blades. It's weird. They're not the toughest things. You can get tough Spyderco, sure. But for the vast majority of their knives, I just think they work. Their ergonomics are just bar none. They don't look the best. It took me a while to get acclimated to this wider hole and everything, but I like the way they look now. But guys, Spyderco wins, and I don't think there's a whole lot bad you can say about him. Every time I want to buy a Spyderco, I'm like, it's a little bit overpriced, but I'll buy it, and then it turns out, oh, I would have paid more for that same blade I just bought. I mean, a PM2, the standard one, starts at $120, and, you know, for G10 and an S30V blade, I mean, that's not outrageous, but you could find that for a little bit cheaper. But I would spend $130, $140 on a PM2, and actually I did. This is a $144 PM2. All just because it had a black coated blade, and to me it was 100% worth it. And as you can see, I did a lot of cutting with this today. So Spyderco wins. We're almost at 9 minutes. Let me know what you guys think of the results below. It was kind of surprising. The rest of the companies were actually pretty close. There was a whole lot that almost beat Cold Steel or ZT for the number 4 and 5 positions. But Spyderco wins overall, and I think it's about time I get me another one. So thanks for watching, guys, as always, and remember, have fun with your knives.